what I really want to do is just be on these adventures. What I want to do is like go all in on this passion and like take on something that kind of intimidates me and scares me, and it's like larger than anything I've ever done. And so I spent a little while kind of like just kind of daydreaming and looking at maps. And I feel like there was a period of time where I was just trying to, come up with some sort of like big grand idea. And somehow it came to me one day, the idea of walking around the world.
Boy, are you in for a treat today. That is our guest, Alexander Campbell. He's about a year into his world walk. Yes, he's walking around the world. His plan is to cover 40,000 kilometers over the next 4 years, catching up with him in Kathmandu, Nepal, after finishing a walk across that country. And this is special because instead of me doing the interviewing, I asked my friend Tom Turcich to have this conversation. Tom is the 10th person to have successfully walked around the world. And just to put that in perspective, more people have walked on the moon than have walked around the world. That's how difficult this is. So I was thrilled when Tom agreed to be a guest host for this podcast and have this conversation, because they're going to really be able to talk about the experience on a whole different level than I could if I was facilitating this conversation. And I'm so excited to bring it to you, and it's happening right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. As you heard at the top, very special show, and I'd love to do more of these. I mean, this platform is here, and I'm here to serve this community. And if we can facilitate conversations that don't involve me, that can go deep in a different way, I'm all about that. So if you think you can contribute in some way as a guest host, or you just have recommendations for anybody you want me to have on the show, or anything like that to improve the show for you, please reach out. Jason@zerototravel.com is my email. And sign up for our free newsletter over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. A couple quick notes before we dive in. I am so excited to read Tom's new book as this episode publishes. It is coming out, and I encourage you to check it out if this conversation excites you. I'm sure you're going to love it. Can't wait to read this. It's called The World Walk, 7 years, 28,000 miles, 6 continents, a grand meditation, one step at a time. So we'll link up to that. And of course, we'll link up to everything else mentioned in this show. You can learn more about Alexander Campbell, today's guest, over at worldwalkexpedition.com. And you can find Tom's work over at theworldwalk.com. Wanted to say a quick thank you to both of these gentlemen for participating in this episode. And also wanted to send condolences for Savannah, who was the first dog to walk around the world. She was Tom's partner, and she has recently passed away. So I know it was a difficult time for him. So I just want to give Savannah some love as we slip and slide into this conversation between two incredible adventurers. Please enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Welcome, Zero to Travel listeners. I am not Jason Moore. I am, in fact, Tom Turcich, the 10th person to walk around the world. I have a book coming out in October called The World Walk, and Jason invited me to be on the podcast, but we thought rather than having me be interviewed for the 4th time on this podcast, I would talk to the new generation of walkers. And today it's Alexander Campbell, who is a year into his world walk. It's great to have you, Alex.
Thanks for having me on, Tom.
How are you? Where are you at?
Right now, I am in Kathmandu in Nepal. Yeah.
And you just finished your walk across Nepal, right?
Yeah, so I just finished a couple of days ago. But right now the western borders are closed into India since COVID. So I've had to come back to the central of Nepal to cross into India to then make my way back around to the Indian side of the border where I walk to.
Oh my gosh.
If that makes sense.
I had something similar with Morocco and Algeria. They're just borders closed. So
Yeah.
like when I got to the Algerian border, I had to ferry up to Spain and then ferry back down. And then
Yeah, right.
And then with COVID too, like I had to fly into Uzbekistan, fly into Kyrgyzstan. Really is not the ideal way to cross into. It's not as satisfying as just that seamless transition.
They don't make it easy for us.
Yeah. Is this the first time you've had to like kind of loop around? I know you've done some island hopping.
I had to do the loop around to get into Nepal at the beginning as well.
You had to go
because
to
it's only the two, like, yeah. So, not to Kathmandu, but yeah. So pretty much there's only like two borders open for foreigners at the moment, like in the middle. And so I came in from this way, but I had to come around to like get back to that bit. So like, yeah, the same. But
just make it difficult for you.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to walk through the Himalayas, so it was kind of like if I wanted to do that, then this is just what I had to do.
That's fair enough. Yeah, it's a price worth paying. So to give the listeners the rundown, I already know your story, and I'm very excited to talk about you. We're like, I feel like of like kin. We're like the same person, basically. I left at 26 years old. You left at 27 about a year ago. And your plan is to walk 40,000 kilometers over 4 years. You've already hiked the Colorado Trail, the Great Himalayan Trail, the Flinders Range in Australia to Sydney. So you've done a bunch of walking already. But for the listeners who don't know your story, would you mind giving a rundown of your history, why you're choosing to walk around the world, and your route ahead of you?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I was always kind of fascinated with long distance hiking, and just kind of any adventurous kind of form of travel. And so even like when I first finished high school and took a gap year, I kind of experimented with different forms of travel. Like I did a few hikes, like overnight hikes. My first ever overnight hike was in Hungary with a friend, and we ended up getting like taken in by some Hungarian farmers for the night, and like immediately, and that was like my first ever overnight hike, and it was an amazing experience. And straight from there, I was like, this is an awesome way to travel. And so, and like throughout that year, I bought a bicycle in India and cycled for a few weeks down the coast on that. And so kind of like experimented with it. And then a few years later, I was heading to Canada actually for a university exchange. I had some time beforehand, and I'd read that there was all these amazing trails in the US. And so it kind of worked time-wise to be able to like squeeze in doing the Colorado Trail before the semester started. And that was my first ever like long hike, and fell in love with it from that. And pretty much from then on, I feel like I've always kind of had a bit of like a long walk in the works. And so, yeah, after finishing that and like coming back home and coming back to university, I ended up taking like a semester off and going to Nepal and walking across Nepal on this route called the Great Himalayan Trail. So that was about 1,600 kilometers and took about maybe 2.5, 3 months. And so that was back in like 2018. So this is actually my second time now going across the country. So it's been kind of strange being somewhere familiar for the first time since like leaving home. And then, yeah, after that, I ended up finishing university, and was like, once I was kind of burnt out, I'd done my honors degree and actually wrote about long distance hiking, and some of the focusing on like people's reintegration after long hikes back into.
I need your take on that because I've been struggling. I need your take. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. So after finishing uni, I was like, I want to go on another big adventure. And I was actually planning to go to the US to do the PCT. But then COVID hit like a few weeks before I was meant to fly out. And so I ended up coming up with like my own route in Australia, kind of connecting a bunch of trails together to form like I think it ended up being about 3,700 Ks from like Flinders Ranges back to my front door in Sydney. I got back from that one, and it was the first time in my life in which I didn't have like university to like automatically fall back into. I feel like, on previous adventures, I didn't really have to think about what was next because it was just like, just go straight back into university. But this time I had to kind of start to ponder what now? What am I going to do now with my life? And I thought about becoming a hiking guide, and I was actually going to sign up. I'd kind of like enrolled in it as well. But then we got hit by another wave of COVID and we went into a lockdown. And so I pushed that off for a semester. And during that time, I started to think, am I sure I actually want to do hiking guiding? And I was like, what I really want to do is just be on these adventures. What I want to do is like go all in on this passion and like take on something that kind of intimidates me and scares me. And it's like larger than anything I've ever done. And so I spent a little while kind of daydreaming and looking at maps. And I feel like there was a period of time where I was just trying to, come up with some sort of like big grand idea. And somehow it came to me one day, the idea of walking around the world. I feel like there was so much I wanted to see. And so often I was thinking like maybe a 1 or 2 year kind of adventure. And it was hard to narrow down where I'd want to walk. Because I was like, if I'm going to do such a large adventure, so like I feel like when's another time that I'm ever going to have to go do something? So suddenly being like, what if I went the whole way around the world? Then I can like choose my own adventure. There's so many different things I can do. I can see it all. And I immediately started like making up a route and thinking about all the different long trails I could join onto. And then I went for a beer that evening with a friend and I told her my big new plan. And then later that week I told my parents, and it was just buckle down and save up for the next year and a half until it was time to set off.
Love it.
So that's pretty much how I got here.
It's very similar, I feel like, in a certain way to mine, at least like the motivation, where when before I started my walk around the world, it was to really do like a big adventure. I wanted to be a lifestyle. I didn't just want to go to Europe and backpack around for a couple months. I wanted to be all in on this and go for a long time. And also with walking too, the appeal for me at least was that it was so slow and you would really be forced to see every place. You couldn't skip over places like you can on a bike or in a car or flying in. And I know for like Angela Maxwell, another world walker who I just talked to, her whole thing was she wanted to feel the earth. That's how she says it. She wanted to feel the earth. And it sounds like you had a similar sort of process of like the draw to walking was something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, what I find really interesting about you and your walk is that I might be, but I think I remember you saying in previous listening to you talk about that you didn't really have much walking experience before this. So for me, I felt like this was like a safe decision. I knew I loved it. I was going all in on this thing that I knew was like a safe bet because I already knew that I loved it. But for you, like, I feel like that was a big gamble. Like you could, like, I don't know, did you get out there and you're like, this is a lot different than what I imagined? Like you might have had like a romantic idea of it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it was tough at the beginning. it was not smooth for like the first 4 months. The first month in particular, I was just so sore, had so many blisters, was cramping all the time, didn't know where to sleep. And it was really just like the world walk. So you had a smoother transition for sure.
Yeah, no, because like I feel like when I think of when I first started hiking, if I had tried to set out to walk around the world at that stage, there's no way I would have made it. Like the fact that you did is really impressive. Like,
part of the reason I started in the US was just like let myself figure things out. And then by the time I get to Mexico, then I'll have my sea legs and be able to do it. But also, in a way that we're different is I was pushing the cart, so I could carry a lot of stuff. And then ultimately when I got Savannah, I could carry her food and her water and all that. But you have the backpack, and I went backpacking for like 5 days before the world walk, and I hated it. I hated having the backpack. I don't know how you do it.
I honestly, I don't know. I think about people who are walking with carts, and I don't know how you guys do it. I've never pushed one before, but I don't know. I feel like it's, at least on foot, especially if you're going through cities or like through towns, like you can like bounce up and down off the pavements, you can dodge things. With a cart, you're so like restricted, and like I don't know. I feel like if I'm walking at night and like a car's coming and I'm in like a remote area and it's dark, I can like dart into the bushes and wait for the car to go past. But I feel like, I don't know, you're very much more, I feel like you're more vulnerable. Like you're more like in the cart, you're quite like, you're stuck there.
Yeah, yeah. I saw you're walking in your videos. You do a lot of walking on like the railroad tracks. And I tried doing that early on and you just can't do it with the cart. I ended up with bending an axle and all that. And so it's very limiting in a certain way because you have to follow these paved routes. And later in the walk, I tried to do the Pyrenees on this little trail and I just like slid down the mountain basically with the cart, holding on to the cart. So that didn't work. But I just hated the tumor kind of the backpack. But it is much more like liberating and freeing. But
I guess it also depends how heavy your pack is. I feel like when I first started hiking, my pack was so incredibly heavy that it was just miserable. And I feel like over the years I've gotten it down light enough that it's not misery walking with it.
yeah, that's like a real, as you go, you really learn to refine every little piece of gear that you need. Because as you're like pushing up a mountain or something, all you're thinking about is what can I cut? What can I cut? What can I throw out? So for walking, what is like what's the primary draw of the walk? Obviously it was natural, but this is also something that seems pretty like ingrown into you. It seems like it's just a part of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's just a lifestyle that I've kind of fallen in love with. It's quite simple in a lot of ways in which you've kind of got the routine, but it's also every day is different. You're out there exercising every day, sleeping in a tent. Like, I feel like these are good, nice things. Yeah, I feel like to have that ingrained into my lifestyle where it's kind of forced on me that every day that you're going to get up and you're going to exercise and you're going to walk. And I feel like it's a good lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a great lifestyle, the best lifestyle. And I totally agree. It's difficult. It can be really challenging, but like you said, you're getting exercise, you're getting sunlight, you're outside, you're meeting people, you're seeing new things. And I know you said before, like you have that purpose every day that kind of drives you forward, which maybe on your thesis, you graduated with archaeology and anthropology. Is that correct?
Correct. Well done.
And then your thesis was on reintegration of hikers after long-term hiking. And that was like, I saw that, I was like, oh my God, he's speaking my language. Because after the 7 years, I probably fell into like the first depression I've ever really fallen into because I just didn't know what to do with my time. And what's so nice about being out there walking like you're doing is that you have that immediate purpose and you can fulfill it every day pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does your thesis say about reintegration and what's ahead for me?
Like, do you want like advice or like what people have found works?
No.
I feel like
no. I'm just curious about what you learned and how it's impacting your view.
Maybe the best tip is go on another walk.
Yeah. I don't know if I've been.
Have you not tempted to go do one of the long trails in the US or something like that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely would love to do the AT or the PCT. But yeah, just the timing hasn't worked out quite yet. But so you gave us the backstory. Can you tell us what you've done so far and then what's ahead for you?
Yeah. So I set off from my hometown of Sydney back in February last year. And so far I've walked about 12,000 kilometers across Australia to Darwin, and then ended up on a sailboat to Indonesia, and then walked a few islands in Indonesia, and then popped over to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and then at the moment Myanmar's in a civil war, so unfortunately I had to skip Myanmar. Actually, I went to Myanmar back in 2016, I think, and it was one of my favorite countries I've ever been to. But yeah, right now it's unfortunately, not the time. But yeah, and so had to get a flight from Thailand to Bangladesh, and then resumed walking from the coast of Bangladesh through into India, through the states of like Meghalaya, West Bengal, and then into Nepal. And I spent the last 3 months going across Nepal and the Himalayas.
Amazing. So what is ahead? What's the next few years look like in your mind?
Next few years is going through India, Pakistan, a little bit of China, and then going through like Central Asia, so through Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and then probably across the Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and then into Europe. After that, at the moment, like what I've said I'm doing is just North America, but I've deliberately kind of gone this way around the world so that like I've left the Americas till last. So I can decide if I'm loving it and I want to maybe do South America too, I can. But so I feel like that's the reason why I've kind of gone this way. So I'm leaving the Americas to last, see how I'm feeling.
I love that. Yeah. The Americas are big. Yeah, that was like 2,000, 2 years and like 10,000 miles from me. So I mean, and that I didn't even do like the whole length of South America. So yeah, that's a good thing to leave as an option, not like box yourself in quite yet.
I feel like I've already committed to so much. I'll wait and see how I feel before committing to that.
Very wise of you. Was it difficult going from, because in Australia it's obviously like very low population density, and then you go into some countries where the population density is really high. I mean, especially Bangladesh, but basically all of Southeast Asia. How was that adjusting? How was that walking?
Yeah, it was a lot. I feel like there was definitely times going through Southeast Asia where I wished I was back in Australia, and I had, because like out there, like I would go, like I could go days without seeing anyone, and like, you know, and I feel like I kind of got used to that, and it kind of grew on me, and I quite liked it, and it's like, and so the population density I feel like was definitely a real thing. Like I feel like I met so many lovely people, but it can be overwhelming constantly getting stopped every like couple of minutes by someone wanting to chat or offer you a ride, and you have a long conversation, and then like literally the next car behind them will stop for you as well. But I feel like it was a big relief getting into the Himalayas as well, like getting into the mountains. Like it was like, I feel like it's nice walking where it's a little more peaceful with a little less vehicles and cars, and I
mean, it's part of the reason you do a walk around the world is to see everything. But I think if you're doing it, you already have that appreciation for nature and that love of nature. And there's just something about walking on like a quiet dirt road where it's paradise, and you sit down and there's nothing around, and you hear the birds going, and the whole world is just yours to take in. Is really nice.
Yeah.
But I can imagine. Sure. I can imagine. I never walked through, I don't think, the population density that you walk through already. I mean, Central America was pretty densely populated, and then even the East Coast of the U.S. I mean, not nearly to that extent. But what were you doing for camping when you were in those places? Or were you doing hotels mostly? Because I know it could, you know, when I would go through cities, I would try and time it where I would either stop outside this, like before the city, or I would stop beyond the city, because in the city you're not camping, at least for me.
Yeah. It's been a mix. Like I feel like it's, you know, going through somewhere like Bangladesh or whatever, it's, you know, pretty easy to find something like very cheap within budget to stay for the night. But then, you know, also like if I can find a place to camp, you know, I'll look on my maps and see if there's any like patches of forest or something that like kind of times well with where I'd be ending my day. Then I'll try and like aim for that throughout the day to try and get there. And then kind of time it till once it's getting dark, I can just like duck off into the forest and find myself somewhere hidden away to camp for the night. Or like, for instance, like in Indonesia, there was like some island, like the island of Flores, there was a lot of time there just wasn't any like formal accommodation, and it was like quite difficult to find somewhere to like stealth camp. So it would just be pretty much at the end of the day, whatever village you were passing through, they would end up being like, where are you going? And like, where are you staying tonight? And then they'd end up just being like, yeah, sure, you can camp here or come sleep inside. And it would be like you know, the friends and neighbors and extended family would come over and have like a big feed, and it would turn up into like a big gathering, which was lovely. But yeah, so I feel like it's all like a whole mix.
That sounds fantastic. I think one of the assumptions that at least I had when I began was that people are good. When before I began, I kind of trusted in humanity, but I think it got reinforced over and over and over just how generous the common person is, and especially when you get into, I'd say, the quieter places. Would you say that you agree? Has that borne out?
That the quieter places, the people are more friendly.
Yeah, the quieter places are more friendly, and then people in general are pretty generous and friendly.
Oh yeah, people are pretty generous and friendly. Yeah. That I agree with. I was just thinking about whether the places that are more remote or versus places like being in like a more busy populated area.
That's a good question for the anthropologist. What do you think?
Yeah. But no, yeah, without a doubt, reinforce every day that the majority of people out here will help and offer a hand during this when you're out here walking.
Is there any that stand out in your mind? Any moments of like amazing generosity or serendipitous generosity?
No, nothing comes to mind. Well, I feel like it's become so like common. It's every day. You know what I mean? So I guess it's hard to narrow it down and pick one. I feel like there's so many hundreds of people.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. When people ask me that question when on interviews, I never knew what to answer either. When I was like, why am I asking him this? Because it's so difficult to answer because you get it so often. It's just like every day. Yeah. But so I wonder, for me, I was a philosophy and psychology major. And I feel like that's how I saw the world, is kind of through that lens. And you're kind of coming at it from a different background. How is it walking through Southeast Asia, or where are you excited to walk ahead? And kind of like, how do your degrees, how does your education sort of influence how you see the world, how you interact with the world, how you view the walk, and how you interact with the walk?
Yeah. I'm not too sure if it does. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a great student. maybe I wasn't born to be an anthropologist or an archaeologist. Maybe that's why I'm walking. But I feel like maybe it doesn't necessarily. Maybe it does without me realizing it. But yeah, I feel like maybe I'm not as analytical as maybe an anthropologist would be. I feel like they would be like very like, whereas like focused on it all. Whereas I'm not sure if I am.
You're just out there walking. You're just taking it all in.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen in some of your videos, you highlight the little structures, whether it's a Muslim temple or a Sikh temple or whatever religion, or Christian temple, Christian church, whatever it is around there. And that's something I probably, when I was out there, I would have looked at and go, oh, that's interesting, but I never would have researched. And so I know, at least like looking at your videos, there's at least that little bit of switch where your eye is drawn to that, and you're at least look up what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it does impact me then. Yeah.
I don't know. That's good. We'll move beyond that, obviously, because you're beyond university now. You're out. You're a walking man, and I wonder. We talked about the kind of the joy of walking and the draw of walking, but part of your motivation was to see how you would change. And I wonder, how have you changed over the past year? I know you've done a bunch of walking before, but this is the longest journey that you've done on foot. And so, I wonder if you could speak to any changes that you've noticed in yourself, or if you feel yourself changing in any way.
Yeah, maybe growing a little bit in confidence, I'd say. Yeah. I feel like that might be one of the main things. I feel like doing something like this, talking like this, would have petrified me not too long ago. Kind of a little more sure of myself, and I think getting out there and challenging yourself is probably a good way to gain that a little bit more confidence and trust in yourself. Yeah.
What is it about the walking in particular that you think it bolsters your confidence?
I think it's, taking on challenges. You know what I mean? Taking on something that kind of intimidates you, and yeah.
Do you think it's the everyday challenges? It's the challenges of like walking into a new city and interacting with new people and figuring out a place to sleep, or is it the larger challenge of accomplishing this vision that you've had?
Both. I know, yeah, both.
Okay. Do you want to expand on it?
No. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
How do you feel you changed?
I think the first year in particular a lot of it was the confidence building. Yeah, the first year in particular, like you said, I think was the confidence building. And when I went through the US, I think the timing of everything worked out really well for me, where when I walked down the US, it was the confidence on just like learning how to hike, something you already knew how to do, and figuring out how to stealth camp and tuck away and how much water I needed and how much food I needed and how to stretch and how much I could walk in one day. And then when I got into Central America later in that year, it was learning to navigate on foot in new cultures and also to like stand out in a lot of ways where before I grew up in little utopia basically in the northeast of the US, and pretty much everyone looks like me, everyone kind of acts like me. And then all of a sudden I'm in this new culture and I'm very deep into it. And I stand out because I'm walking with a dog and a big red baby carriage and 6'2" and gangly. And so you have people coming up to you and interacting with you and asking what you're doing. And so that definitely grow that confidence, I think, quite naturally, because you have to learn to be okay with yourself and to be okay to be the stranger in a place, but then also to be okay just sitting somewhere and not knowing the place, just sitting down at a restaurant and not speaking the language perfectly.
Not knowing what you can order.
The amount of times I ate rice and chicken just because I didn't know anything else is infinite kind of thing. So I think it's all those little things that was like the initial confidence. And then the second year of walking, which kind of sounds reverse to you, where then I got into the deserts of the Americas and it became really, really self-reflective, where I was just spending all this time with myself and looking at sort of my motivations and my influences and my idiosyncrasies and the mistakes I made and all these things that kind of formed my life, and then coming to peace with them. And then beyond that, then it would just became kind of, I was like a walker. But yeah, I think the confidence thing in the first year is a really real thing. I think especially when you're in these new places and you're forced to just make a fool of yourself kind of over and over and over again.
Yeah. I must admit, I'm looking forward to not standing out. I feel like it would be nice to eventually, get to Europe or somewhere where I can just blend in and don't look like out of place. Yeah,
I mean, it can be exhausting for sure.
Yeah,
and you were going through really densely populated areas too, so I'm sure it's like every day it's kind of a nonstop. Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. So, have you had anyone come out on the trip and walk with you at all?
I had a friend join me for like 2 days, for like going from like Singapore into Malaysia. But I had my parents have come out and visited me. But that's about it.
Have you felt like you need refreshing yet, or are you're feeling pretty like mentally and emotionally pretty tough, pretty strong?
Nah, at the moment I feel like I'm probably in my first maybe dip, but I got did a blood test yesterday and I'm iron deficient, so I think I've just been lacking the energy and the drive and just kind of been a bit and so I've been iron deficient before in my life, and I was like, I think this might be what I've got. So once I got to Kathmandu, I went and saw a doctor and got a blood test done, and they're like, yeah, you're iron deficient. I'm like, that explains it. So I feel like once I start getting some more iron supplements in me, then I'll be like back up to my normal.
Yeah, I'd imagine the iron deficiency, it will really drain your energy. So I wouldn't put too much
Yeah.
on yourself.
No.
Yeah. Is there anywhere up ahead that you're really looking forward to walking? You have
Yeah, I feel like India will be good, especially like going through. I'm planning to go through like an area called Ladakh, like Zanskar Ladakh, and I walked through there actually after the last time I walked across Nepal, and it's stunning. It's like high altitude, like Tibetan Buddhist kind of area. It's beautiful. So looking forward to going through that, and then going through Tajikistan as well. There's a trail called the Pamir Trail that a Dutch guy has been forming that goes like across like the whole country, and so plan to follow that. So a lot of nice mountain hiking to come.
Yeah, I mean your videos are beautiful and they're fantastic. They're great little snippets into what it's actually like to be out there walking. And I think you do a good job of balancing the realities when you're sick or when your knee's hurting versus the beauty of things and sort of the peace of things and the routine of things as well. With the social media aspect, when I was doing it, it was all photos, and I was very reluctant, honestly, to share on social media, but I did it because I had some people supporting me, and the photos seemed like, this is kind of the minimum that I can give. What's your interaction with social media? Because it seems like as a person, you
Yeah,
would probably stray away from that normally.
yeah.
You're putting out these
This
great
is
videos and it's giving enjoyment to a lot of people.
yeah. Wait, what made you think that I wouldn't naturally be doing this usually?
You're a walker, you're a person walking around the world. So I would say that's a person kind of mad enough to be that far in is probably not the type of person who is excited to be on social media.
Yeah, yeah, it's a quite an astute observation. Yeah, so I guess like this is quite new territory for me. Like the last time I walked across Nepal, I didn't post anything. My mom shared some photos to her Facebook, but I didn't share anything. But like setting off on this walk, I was like, I'll try and make more of an effort. I feel like it's been nice in the sense in that like by documenting it, I feel like there's probably a lot that I forgot from like the last time I walked across Nepal just because I didn't put any effort into documenting it. And so with this walk, I started same as you with like photos and some words. And then in like Malaysia, I've been playing with the idea of doing videos. I kind of felt like it captured it better than my words could by having the images, like actual moving footage. I feel like kind of brought the walk to life more. And so I was like, all right, I'll do one day and I kind of just kept it going. And so I've been, doing the videos for a while now. Just like little daily videos.
Yeah, people
But
really love them. They're great.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. But yeah, no, it is a lot of work. And I feel like it's a love-hate relation. Like looking back and like being able to now see days from like, 100 or 200 days ago and be like, oh, I forgot that happened. That's so cool. Now I can see that. But at the time, it can be a drag at times because it is a lot of work. But yeah, so a bit of a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot of work in the videos. I did it for a little bit. I like started for a while, and I always just was like, I can't do this. It's so much work. And then when I got to Turkey for the second time, like during COVID, I'd already been there. I was kind of bored. I had all this time on my hands. So then I started really getting into the videos. But there's a part, and maybe you don't have this same experience, but for me, I really like the photography because it wouldn't take me out of a place or out of a moment. I feel like when I was doing the videos, I was kind of always thinking, oh, I should get a video of this. Whereas a photo would pop up. Like for me, it was like, oh, here's a beautiful shot. and I could grab a photo and then kind of be done with it and have it preserved. Do you feel like with the videos, it takes you out of it, or does it bring you into it? Does it help you interact with people more?
I feel like it's kind of, or at least the way that I went about my taking photos versus taking videos, I feel like it's kind of, in some ways, quite similar. Like, if I get to a pretty view, I would have whipped out my phone and just gone click. But now instead I go film. And then, so it's like, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like similar. I'll try and remember every now and then. I'll be like, oh, I should like talk to the camera and say maybe what I'm doing today, or like what's happened, and like fill in the blanks kind of thing. But I feel like the actual filming of it doesn't really take me out of it. If anything, it's kind of like, it's when you're like, you notice something, and you're like, that's a really pretty view, or like, that's an interesting looking plant, and so it's kind of like, it's making you, I feel like in no ways is the actual filming kind of taking me out of it. But I feel like the editing consumes a lot of time that when I'm not hiking. Yeah. If that makes sense.
You're trying to do it like almost every day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm like, right now, I'm like currently like a month and a half behind in my videos. But I'm probably going to have to end up taking a significant break during the winter. Just because pretty much like when the winter comes, like the border between Pakistan and China snows over. Like the border crossing is at like 4,600 meters or something. So that closes, and then like I wanted to do mountain trails as well through Tajikistan, so that's all going to be snowed over and not possible. So my plan is to I'm going to end up waiting the winter out in India. So I'm going to have like a significant break. So I'll try and catch up on all the videos then. But yeah, so that would be nice as well. I haven't had like, I think the longest break I've had was maybe a couple of weeks in Darwin once I finished Australia. So like I've been pretty much just going for the last almost year and a half now. So yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it'll be well deserved, and you have a little bit of a purpose. You'll have that little purpose of editing some videos every day.
Exactly. Yeah. No. In that time, it'll be nice having something to work on.
It makes me wonder though, because when I saw your plan initially, it's 40,000 kilometers in 4 years, which is, I feel like.
No, now, because I wasn't planning to take that break for the winter. My plan was, I was hoping to have gotten through Nepal quicker, gotten through these mountains, and gotten through like Tajikistan all before the winter hit. But now I'm realizing I'm not going to make it. Been moving a little bit slower, probably because of the iron deficiency. I feel like I've probably had this for a few months now, because I've kind of been feeling, not great for a while. This is going to extend it a little bit. But also, like, I kind of quite like the idea of taking a chunk of time off here and there. I feel like on one of my previous walks, the one in Australia, actually I ended up getting injured. I hired a surfboard for the day on the coast and went surfing and injured my knee, and was told I needed to like take at least like 8 weeks off. And so ended up stopping and spending the whole summer there, and got a job at like a hiking store. And then once my knee was better, my boss lent me a surfboard to use, and like it was like this great summer. And I feel like if I hadn't have gotten injured, I would have just walked through there in like a day, and it would have meant nothing to me. And so I feel like it's kind of, and like now that was like one of the most memorable parts of that walk was that extended stay there. And so I like the idea of every now and then maybe, working in a longer kind of stay somewhere. If it is just waiting out the winter or something, I feel like that's a nice little kind of change up from the constantly moving. It's a different way to experience a place.
Yeah, absolutely. The first year of walking, I was walking 24 miles a day without stop, not like I was on fire. And then somewhere in Peru, maybe even it started in Colombia and Ecuador, but the hotels got cheap enough, and I was kind of assured enough that I was going to walk around the world that I was doing these long stretches of desert where I was exhausted afterwards. But I remember getting to these little towns and then stopping for the weekends to recharge and realizing, oh, maybe I should like do this more often. This is really nice, and I actually get to see the town a little bit. So yeah, I think it's a natural and probably like healthy progression to stop. Has there been anywhere recently or in the past since you've left Australia that you've stayed for maybe a weekend or a little longer that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, like I feel like I'll take like maybe a week off here and there. When I get to somewhere like major, like here in Nepal, when I kind of hurt my knee and I had to come to Kathmandu, I took like 10 days off there. And then also the other like major kind of city that people go to here is Pokhara. And so once I finished the Annapurna circuit, I went to Pokhara and like took a week off there. And so like, I feel like, I work in little breaks, but most of the time when I take a week off, I'm just kind of editing videos and eating lots of food. So I am taking breaks off. I feel like it sounds like with how you started was kind of like how I started in Australia as well. I was very much like, doing the big, I'm not sure the conversions into kilometers, but it was often like in the 40s to 50Ks. It was also, there was a bit of a time frame because I needed to get up to the top of Australia before like the wet season came. And so I was kind of on a bit more of a time frame. Otherwise I would have just kind of gotten stuck walking through floods, and which it just wouldn't have been possible. So I guess now I've been able to, I've kind of broken out of, I feel like then I was like waking up at like crack of dawn and like just pumping. I guess because there was no one else out there, I could just focus on the hiking. Whereas I feel like getting to other countries, it became much more of a thing that, you'd stop and sit and have a tea with someone. Or I feel like there was all these kind of added new activities added into the day. Whereas when you're out there by yourself, it was just walking.
Yeah, well, you sound so similar to me when, especially in the beginning, where you have that, like, I think it's important to have that internal sort of fire and like drive to, I have to walk a certain amount every day. Because if you don't have that, then you're not going anywhere. But there is some sort of balance where it's nice to be out in the desert and just be going and charging along. But then it's also really nice to, sit and have tea and meet people as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. It's an interesting life, an interesting balance. But going back to your route and your initial plan, what so astounded me initially when I looked at it was 40,000 kilometers in 4 years. That's like over 6,000 miles, which is so much. I think I did 5,000 miles my first year, maybe my second year, somewhere around there. And it ended up, I thought it was going to take me 5 years to do this 25,000 miles. It ended up taking me 7. I got very ill from a bacteria infection. And then I had COVID. That slowed me down. Angela Maxwell, another world walker, she thought hers was going to take, I think, 4 years, maybe 5 years. Ended up taking her 7. Carl Bushby, the like godfather, basically.
He's still going, isn't he?
He's still going. He's been going for like 25 years. He's been going longer than 25 years. And so
but he's just stuck, isn't he? He's not moving anywhere at the moment, is he?
He right now is on the Caspian Sea in Kazakhstan with Angela Maxwell, and they can't get around it walking, and so they're planning on swimming across the Caspian. And hopefully, I imagine.
Did he get through?
What's that?
Did he get through Russia?
Kind of. He got out of Russia into Kazakhstan, and so he can't. I guess it sounds like he can't go back into it, or his visa's out, whatever it is. But so he's basically trying to get to Azerbaijan and Georgia, and then it should be easy going, and hopefully a finish. But so first off, if you're going to walk this 40,000 kilometers in 4 or 5 years, first off, do you think you're better than me? Second off, do you think it'll actually only take like 5 years? Do you think 5 years, or do you foresee this being, a lifestyle of 10 years on Carl Bushby's level, or 12 years, 15 years?
15 years too long. I feel like I want to settle down and I want to have a normal life. I feel like I would like to eventually, have a partner, have a family, do all those things. But yeah, if it adds, if a couple of years are added onto it, like, I don't know, I feel like our sense of time is so warped, because we like, for an average person, it'd be like, oh, just, maybe if it's a couple more years of walking, and I'd be like, huge. But I guess, it's kind of, it doesn't seem as drastic. Yeah, if it extends a little bit longer, like, I feel like I set out the 4 years without taking into consideration any break. I kind of needed to come up with I was applying for like an adventure grant, and they needed me to give them a timetable, kind of like how long it would kind of take, kind of thing. And so I just kind of like worked it out roughly, if I was going to do it. And so like it wasn't necessarily like stuck into whether it like stays there or not. But I guess like it would be an average of like 10,000 Ks a year, which on the first year I was like over 9,000. So I was, like I did the first 6,000 Ks in like the first 6 months. So like in Australia. And then things have just slowed down since leaving Australia. And I guess that maybe I didn't predict how much it would slow down once I left. I think, it was just so easy because especially in Australia, it would be like, you'd be like 5 days or a week between towns. So the speed that I was moving at times wasn't necessarily a choice. It was kind of like, that's as much food as I can fit in my backpack. And, like the longest stretch was like 400 kilometers up in the Northern Territory. And so, I had to just do like 50 Ks back to back for like 8 days to get there. I don't have the biggest backpack, so I kind of just needed to, that was all the food I could fit in there. Once getting out of Australia, there's pretty much villages or towns or something all over the place, especially through like Southeast Asia and India and Bangladesh. And so I feel like, there hasn't been like as long of stretches to just kind of like fly through.
How were you getting water in the outback? What's like, were you obviously had to filter some water. Was it?
Yeah. Like all my water was just filtered from like creeks and rivers, and like troughs that like, cattle would drink from. I wasn't sure whether it was going to be possible because I'm carrying like just the backpack, what I mean? Like I can't really stock up with like, I don't know how much water you can carry on like pushing it, but with the backpack, I'm sure it's a lot less. And so I wasn't actually sure how it was going to go. Like when you're looking at maps at home and like, it's kind of like, oh, there's a creek there, like whether there's actually water in it in real life is a whole other thing. But I think I got lucky in that I got a good year in which there was water around. Like still often it would be like, like over 50 Ks between water sources. Like I think the longest I thought I was going to do was like in like around 80 Ks. And so I ended up like finding bottles, like empty like Coke bottles and water bottles on the ground and like knowing that this stretch was going to come up soon. So once I got to the last water source, I filled them all up and I was carrying something like maybe like 12 liters on me in total, like just like stuffed everywhere in my pack. And it was terrible. And thankfully there ended up being some water, but it was difficult. Now it's like, I feel like Australia was by far the hardest part of the walk. But I kind of love the challenge. Whereas, since then, food and water has been not too much of a challenge. Yeah.
Was that route that you did in Australia? Have people done that before?
So for the first part, like going up the east of Australia, I was on a route known as the Bicentennial National Trail. And so it's kind of like some people do it on horses or bikes or walk it. And then once I followed that up, then kind of cutting across to Darwin. That was just kind of on like outback roads, just kind of, trying to get off the main roads and get onto like, dirt roads through national parks and stuff. And I'm not sure if anyone, like, I think possibly people have walked it, but like nothing that like, there wasn't really anyone that I was getting any advice or information from. And no one that I don't know if anyone had done it without pushing some sort of cart or trailer thing. So,
that's that's like a real leap of faith going with the backpack and just hoping those creeks are there.
Yeah. But I feel, I feel like you kind of got a good feel of like which ones, because you kind of tell which one's like more like a main kind of water source and which ones aren't. And so I'd kind of always try and assume that things that look like a little creek, don't assume there's water in them and only assume for the big ones. Yeah,
that's something. You've done some hiking in your past. That's a good call.
Yeah.
So the transition when you went from you're in the middle of nowhere. What was like the first day? What were the first couple of days like when you landed and you're walking in civilization? When you're
you
went to Indonesia after Australia. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
What was the first couple of days like going? Was it a big shock to the system? Was it a big cultural shock? What was the?
I was like, I landed, and like the first spot that I walked was the island of Flores. And so far, like to this day, I think it's the most hospitable place that I have walked through. Like the people were just so kind. And I remember, like, I think it was the first night I managed to find somewhere on a beach to camp. And then the second night, I was, I wasn't too sure where I was going to stay. There was no like accommodation or anything. It was just kind of like villages everywhere. And so when it was about to get dark, I kind of stopped and asked some people if, if there was somewhere I could camp. And ended up getting like surrounded by like 30 people. Kind of everyone was like, oh, like watching kind of thing. And one of them was a retired teacher, and he was like, I live just down the road. Come with me. I've got a room for you. And he like took me into his home, and I had a big family dinner with them all. And then the next day went to church with them in the morning. Yeah, I feel like I didn't really know anything about Flores, but they just really pride themselves on their hospitality, and it was an awesome. I spent like a month walking across the island, and like what I thought was like an amazing first experience was just then repeated pretty much every day, going like across the island and just being taken in by another family. It was I feel like that coming from Australia was where I was just very like by myself to all of a sudden just being like very communal. But it was lovely. It was really nice, and everyone, like literally everyone would stop you to like you'd have stop and have tea like maybe like 6 times more times, and like you have to like say no to every like 3-4 people being like I've already eaten, I've already had tea, because it's just like it's just constant. But it's lovely.
That's so nice. Sounds like an incredible, like perfect transition into, walking around people.
Yeah, no, it really was.
Besides the iron deficiency, how's your body holding up after all this walking?
Body has been good. I had a slight knee problem, maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I'm not too sure. Where I just kind of woke up and it wasn't really working properly. It couldn't like really support itself, like to walk downstairs, which is like essential here in Nepal in the mountains, because everything is just up and down. And so I went to Kathmandu and saw a physio and got some work done on it, and it healed pretty quickly, which is great. And I haven't had any issues with it since. Yeah, body's been fine. Really, like other than that, there hadn't really been any complaints. I can't think of the last time I had a blister. Pretty smooth sailing.
Are you getting enough to eat?
No, like the food. Yeah, food is hard here. I feel like in Nepal, like most people just kind of have 2 meals a day. Like it's called like dal bhat, and so it's just kind of like rice with some dal, and like some vegetables, like maybe like some spinach. I feel like there's not in other countries. There's like maybe like a lot more little restaurants, whereas like when you're out in the villages, it's kind of like there might be a little village store and you can get some like biscuits and some 2-minute packets of 2-minute noodles. And so I feel like throughout the day, I'm often kind of living off that kind of just crap, just biscuits and packets of noodles. And then if I'm lucky, if I'm staying somewhere or something where I can get like a dal bhat, like a real cooked meal, then that's good. But I feel like my diet here hasn't been great, which probably has contributed to the iron deficiency.
Most likely. That's not good. You're not counting a stove, right? Or are you?
No, I'm not.
No stove. Yeah, that's tough. I remember in Uzbekistan was really difficult for me in that way. Where
you had a stove? Yeah,
I had a stove. Yeah, but so I would do pasta and whatever. But I would also really rely on to supplement everything with restaurants, because you're just burning so many calories every day, and you can go into a restaurant and you can just chow down. And in Uzbekistan, there's a lot of villages where there's no restaurant. It's just a little village store. And there was really, really sparsely packed with goods. It was just like a couple types of pasta, maybe some bread, some tuna, like you said. And so I was just eating tuna sandwiches like you would not believe. And that's just getting by. But it really takes a toll on you after a while when you're not eating as much as you need to. You're burning so many calories.
Yeah. No, I'm making sure I stock up on lots of fruit and veg while I'm here in Kathmandu.
Nice. Well, It's been about an hour. Want to give you the floor. I know you're raising money for Fred Hollows Foundation, which is a foundation that helps with curable blindness, which also is linked to B2 deficiencies and all sorts of malnutrition. So somewhat relevant to our previous topic. But if you want to plug anything, if you want to talk about anything, now is you got the floor.
So raising money for the Fred Hollows Foundation. You can find the fundraiser like on my Instagram or Facebook or website. Pretty much they work in eye healthcare and work in about 25 countries around the world, including here in Nepal. And I actually randomly met someone about a week ago in a small little village in the far west of Nepal. I was chatting to him over dinner, and he suddenly recognized I have like a Fred Hollows, the charity, like shirt that they gave me. And so that's the shirt that I wear when I'm not hiking. It's like my clean shirt. And he noticed the logo, and he was like, "Oh, like Fred Hollows." And it turned out that he'd had eye work done from about 8 years ago. So that was awesome to meet someone who has actually had their life changed from it. And now he said his eyes are great. And he would have been young. I reckon he must be only like 30 or something like that. So to be already like losing your sight at that age, So it was awesome, to see how that actually is where the money is actually going and meet someone whose life's changed by it. They've also worked like in Australia with the Indigenous Australians, in Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh. I got to visit one of their eye hospitals there and see some of the work they're doing there. It was really just a way to try and repay some of that kindness that, we experience as world walkers out here, and try and give something back to the people and the communities that I go through. So if you want to help with that, then head on over to the fundraiser and donate.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's like, what an incredible difference. I mean, I can't imagine the path that man's life would have taken if not for Fred Hollows Foundation. It's incredible. Such a small thing in a certain way, but it changed his whole life, So, and it's, for someone from a developed country to donate $20 or $50, $5, whatever, it can make all the difference for someone. So thanks so much for that. And for the listeners, you can follow Alex on his Instagram. He puts out great videos almost every day. He's got a huge backlog, so we'll be expecting a month of videos to be flooding the interwebs very soon. We can follow him at his name, Alexander_Campbell. And for me, Tom Turcich, you can follow me if you want at The World Walk on Instagram. My book is coming out October 8th by the same name. There's a link on my website, tomturcich.com. And in my Instagram, so you pre-order.
Are you going to be doing an audio book by any chance? Because I'd love to listen to it while I'm walking.
They got it. I mean, I hope so. I think it's got to sell well enough, and then they would ask me. So fingers crossed. I mean, that would be fantastic. Yeah. Fingers crossed. But I'll send you a copy or something. For time you need it, and then add a little weight to your pack. Maybe I'll send it to you when you're in India and you're resting up, so you can read it then.
Exactly. Sounds like a plan.
All right, Alex, it was so good talking to you. I'm so glad we got to meet. Thank you for all your time.
This has been lovely. No, thanks for having me, Tom. It's been really nice.
And thank you, Jason, for putting us on Zero to Travel.
Thank you, Jason.
There you have it. Thank you both, Alexander and Tom, for putting that together and allowing me the privilege of publishing it here on the Zero to Travel podcast. Had so much fun listening to that one. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Don't forget, you can check out both of these gents over on their websites, and Tom has his book out, which is all about his walk around the world, the World Walk, 7 years, 28,000 miles, 6 continents, a grand meditation, one step at a time. Should I start a book club? I feel like if I'm ever going to start one, this would be the one to launch it with. If anybody's interested in participating in something like that, let me know. I love to read, and can't wait to read this one. Okay, before I let you go, should leave you with a quote. First, just a quick reminder, zerototravel.com/newsletter is where you can get the latest and greatest free. Comes out every week. keep you updated on the podcasts that are coming out and also other various projects and things like that. And travel tips, links to helpful stuff, all that good stuff. You can get it for free over there. So please sign up if you haven't done so already. Okay. Here we go with a quote. Actually, it's more than a quote. I thought I would share a little excerpt from this wonderful little box set I have. I have this small box set. I saw it at my mom's. It's from Thich Nhat Hanh, and he has a series of books. And really, you could say the overarching theme of these books is mindfulness, I suppose. Comes with 5 books: How to Love, How to Relax, How to Sit, and How to Eat, and How to Walk is the other one. So I pull that out, flip to a page, and I'll read you an excerpt from that book. And I can link up to this box set as well in the show notes if that piqued your interest. Okay. The title of this page, Walking is a Miracle. Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment is a miracle. When I breathe in and become fully alive, I see myself as a miracle. When I look at an orange mindfully, I see the orange as a miracle. When I peel an orange mindfully, I see that eating an orange is also a miracle. The fact that you are still alive is a miracle. So miracles are the things that you perform several times each day with the power of mindfulness. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now. I perform this miracle every time I walk. You too can perform the miracle of walking anytime you want. That's it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.